It's actually our fault, isn't it? We enabled them for far too long, and now that we dared to speak up, ask for our property not to be arbitrarily taken away from us, they have come in full force to make absolutely clear that we deserve nothing, that we don't own anything, that we should be happy to give them our hard-earned money and thank them for the privilege. I'm talking about the whole Sony debacle. And about digital rights, actual digital rights, and not DRM shit. And I thought it to be quite appropriate to have No One Lives Forever in the background, a game that has been in rights holder limbo forever, that you can't officially buy anymore, and that still works, because it doesn't rely on a central server. It doesn't have to phone home to make sure you're even allowed to play by the powers that be. And, of course, because on PC there are countless crafty enthusiasts making sure to keep any game running, to the best of their ability. So tell me, how can it be that I can just pop in and play games from 30 or 40 years ago? Sometimes I might have to fidget around a bit, blow in a cartridge, emulate an old Windows version, stuff like that. But it will work some way or another. But if I try to do that with Darkspore from 2011 or the even more recent The Crew, I'm shit out of luck. Even more so if we're talking about console games relying on a central server. This problem isn't anything new. It has been with us for quite a while now. Nintendo has shut down a few of their online storefronts, and with your purchases tied to the respective game systems, users have lost access to a lot of games they bought in the past. And when it comes to retro games, there's now almost no real option left to buy those. On the Switch and Switch 2, they are only available as part of the online subscription, so they aren't yours to keep either. But at least this time, Big N is honest about it. Destiny famously revoked access to bought expansions because they couldn't handle the load of all the game data they happily sold you, but I guess investing in more or better servers is just too much to ask of them. No, it's a much better solution to just take away the content from the paying customer. It's entirely in Bungie's discretion which of the missions you paid for you're allowed to play. A large amount of Xbox games have been requiring additional data to be downloaded for a while now. So when the servers shut down or you can't access your profile on a certain system anymore, as is the case with my main account on the Xbox 360 but still works on more recent platforms, you'll also lose access to your games. So whenever we talk about game preservation and someone brings up physical games, physical collections as a point, which I have also done in the past, we need to remind those people that this debate is not about physical versus digital. There's up and downsides to both formats, like loading or reading speed, reliability of the storage medium, but this is more about ownership. I have the physical discs of multiple games I can't access anymore because the servers they rely on have been shut down. Every game that hasn't the entirety of its data on the disk is doomed to be unplayable at an unspecified point in the future. That's of course true for all media, for all things even. Nothing is eternal. All my tapes and discs and microchips and holo projectors will crumble to dust one day. Maybe after we're all gone, maybe slightly before. And even if it survives until the end of the universe, well, there's still the end happening, right? But will there even be any beings left to experience these games? Yeah, I will die, as do you. So we won't keep our games forever. But there is a difference between not living forever, not keeping good enough care of your hardware, having some bad luck or simply force majeure, and having your games taken away from you by the people who sold them to you in the first place, under the pretense that you never actually owned them, no matter if it's physical copies or just data packages. If my disc is fine and my console as well, the game should work. It should not be any of my concerns that the publisher lost the license or doesn't think it financially beneficial anymore to run a server. I already paid, just let me keep my damn product. And yeah, even though I said it's not about digital versus physical, but ownership rights in general, the problem increases immensely in a digital-only environment. Just look at smart devices. How many apps got broken by the people running the stores? You are forced to upgrade your operating system, or you can't access the store anymore or can't connect to the server. But the app only supports up to a certain version of the operating system. Or the game has just been removed and all access is gone. But since you paid only small amounts at a time, at least in the early days, no one better than I. So what? Another $1 garbage game has disappeared. Who even cares? Well, we should have cared back then, because it has only gotten worse. As I've already said, it has been going on for a while now. Nintendo shut down online stores and removed the ability to access your purchased content. Destiny removed access to your purchased missions, and Overwatch did so too in a similar way, when they launched the second game as a free-to-play game and merged it with the premium-priced first game, taking away the game people actually bought and replaced it with something else, something lesser. Video game subscription services have hurt quite a few studios, funded slop which, in the case of Concord, got taken away just a few months after launch, but at least customers got their money back in that case. And in the case of Sony's PlayStation Plus subscription, it advertises itself on an outright lie about the nature of the games in your library. Unlike Microsoft's Game Pass subscription, where you get access to the whole catalog, well, not quite anymore, but each console now has predatory subscription tiers, so let's just leave it at, it's a bad service. But yeah, you get access to the whole catalog of a rotating game selection. With the PlayStation Plus subscription, you get to unlock 3 games each month and add them to your library. And the store page clearly states that you keep them as long as your subscription is active. Which is just untrue. Games have been removed from the library in the past, so it is not true that you get to keep them, even though you keep paying for your access. A similar issue, less devious but still overreaching from Sony, was the internal clock error with the PS4. That has already been fixed through a patch. The system was programmed in a way that when the battery inside the PS4 runs out and the clock stops, your system becomes pretty much useless. Because it's programmed so games need to verify the correct time to be playable. Though, mind you, any solution that requires a download from Sony's servers becomes an issue again once the servers are down eventually, and shutting servers down is something Sony is just itching to do. A few years ago they already wanted to shut down the PS3 and Vita online stores, but held off on that due to a substantial amount of backlash. This time though, we might not be so lucky. Sony recently announced that they would shut down the PlayStation 3 and PS Vita online stores in July of 2027, sooner in some selected countries. And this time for real. Access to content bought before the shutdown will continue for the time being, but the phrasing is already highly alarming. It does imply that this will only be temporary, and when Sony deems it enough, then that's it for your access. Which is only fair from their perspective. They already obliged more than they needed to, really, since, and this is the important part, you never owned anything in the first place. Sure, you gave them money, you clicked on a button labeled buy or purchase, but in truth, you only rented the digital content for the time being, as long as they are willing to grant you access. They try to frame physical purchases the same way, by the way. It's just a lot harder to enforce with those. Why do you think they all love their live service games so much? With them, they can justify having you connect to a server they control. So even your game discs aren't worth a damn if they decide to end the service. Just a few days prior to the news, they announced they would delete 500-ish movies from their service and servers, revoking all access from users without reimbursement, of course. And why? Because they didn't want to renew the license for these movies. We're not talking about a subscription catalog. Those are movies people bought, like a real DVD in a store. They just did it digitally for the convenience. Any normal, rational person would expect to own their copy, like with a physical version, watching when they want, for as long as they want, even after a particular store doesn't have the right anymore to sell it. Well, it doesn't matter anymore what a rational person would expect. So what are our choices here? Not buy into live service games and only get physical versions? Well, this won't be our decision to make for much longer. On Xbox, more often than not, the physical versions aren't full physical versions anymore. Nintendo shadily pushes their game key cards, which just unlocks the digital version on the system that currently holds the game key card, so the control once again lies fully with Nintendo. Microsoft tried to pull that stunt many years ago with the Xbox One. But since the idea of a physical disc only unlocking a license on your console was rather novel, and customers not having become so complacent and lazy, It was met with so much backlash that Microsoft still hasn't recovered from it. Which brings us to Sony's latest stunt. Between all their other announcements, Sony laid out their plans to stop producing any physical versions for PS5 games starting in 2028. Their biggest production plant for game discs is already planned to be converted to produce optical micro lenses. So there's no coming back from this. The decision is final. So they close their online stores and remove the content you paid for, and simultaneously tell you that going forward you will only buy your games digitally from them and their online stores, that they might shut down at any point. Isn't that scary? And Sony is lying their ass off with the justifications. They pretend they're doing this for the users who prefer digital purchases over physical, releasing carefully curated numbers to show just how many more sales are made on the online store instead of through retailers. Just don't look into it. Don't ask if those numbers include digital-only releases, which crop up more and more even with premium-priced games. Or DLC that by definition doesn't release in physical form, the odd definitive complete edition after the fact aside. It's just a load of bullshit. A few years ago, Ubisoft's Philippe Tremblay said in an interview that users need to get comfortable with not owning their games. Damage Control immediately stepped in and claimed that this was a misunderstanding. But not long after that, Ubisoft shut down The Crew in early 2024, not even letting new users who bought a physical version log on months prior to the shutdown, kicking off the Stop Killing Games movement that, after a few hurdles, actually succeeded in bringing the issue in front of the European Parliament, among other venues. The industry, of course, lied and misrepresented the movement, the demands and reality itself at every turn. And shortly before the EU Commission was supposed to give an official statement on the whole issue, it was once again Ubisoft who took part in a shady private backroom meeting with the EU Commission. We can't be sure what was said in there, but everything that came out of the Commission afterwards was disappointing to say the least. Still, the initiative and the whole movement forming around it pointed a huge spotlight on the injustices going on in the games industry and digital marketplaces as a whole, and the lack of user protection and the insane license agreements that, still, users are forced to agree to, at times, after they already bought the product. Not once was I asked to agree to any contractual obligations before I handed over the money. But then I boot up the game and the license agreement pops up and doesn't let me continue until I accept. And these agreements are insane. It's pages upon pages of obligations. Buying a game shouldn't be so complicated. I don't have to sign an agreement when I buy food or a board game or a book. There's only one thing that should matter, and it should just be implicit, and that is that buying the copy doesn't entail any IP rights and I'm not allowed to distribute it. All the other crap is not needed and shouldn't be there in the first place. Yeah, the movement, while not entirely successful, far from it, still achieved a lot, most importantly, raising awareness. And maybe it forced the hand of all those companies who now came out in full force, spilling the beans about their insane plans for the future of the medium, digital media in general, and who knows what else will come next. They're still lying sacks of shit about it, pretending that all those restrictions are for our sakes, for our convenience, but don't be fooled. It was never about what users desired, and it's also not about a few dollars here or there with every sale. It has always been about control. Companies try, at every turn, to stop or hinder you from using the products you bought, to dictate how you use the products you bought. Even if that means a game is lost forever in the process. They appreciate it if you buy the same game over and over again, but they're not going out of their way to make a game they took away available again. They want to control which games you play and when you're playing them and how you're playing them. Why should you still play a game from 10 years ago when the sequel is out? That's just more of the same. Go play that. Pay again. Pump up the player count for the new game. With all digital games, publishers can patch in or out whatever they want, as they have demonstrated in the past. License for some models or music has run out, well, now it's out of everyone's game. Unlockable content that's well liked by the community, now it's behind a microtransaction paywall. With a game on disc or cartridge, I have always the option to at least go back to version 1.0. At least with games that weren't designed around the infamous Day 1 patch. And of course, with an all-digital environment, there's no pesky resells. They already don't want you to resell your physical games, but they can't really do anything against it. But on their own digital marketplaces, well, they can do whatever they want. There just isn't a sell option. And that's the end of it. How would you even sell a game that you don't truly own? Even the Entertainment Software Association said so in a letter to the California State Assembly. It's a false premise that consumers own digital games. We have no rights on digital storefronts, and lawmakers are slow or even unwilling to do something about that. Almost none of the digital storefronts have a working refund policy. They don't even offer you an option to even ask for it. If the game you bought doesn't work, has game-breaking bugs and glitches on the platform you bought it on, like it tends to happen every now and then, especially on Nintendo's eShop, tough luck. There is no customer support, no intuitive way to contact Nintendo, no streamlined process to apply for a refund. On PC it exists. It got implemented on Steam a few years ago, with a rather generous no questions asked grace period before you have to apply for a regular refund. And GOG generally just tends to be on the customer side as long as there are no signs of abuse of the system. I have never seen anything like that on console. They staunchly stick to their little policy notes that any purchase is final and there are no refunds under any circumstances. You'd think with such a rational and logical step towards the future, to an all-digital future, for the increased convenience and all those fancy opportunities that can't be possible right now, like continuing your save file regardless on what system you play and transfer your library onto another system, truly stuff that isn't feasible under current conditions. Such a change would come with a complete overhaul on how we treat digital goods, digital property. Surely there would be a need for a better refund system, or a way to trade in old licenses you don't need anymore. I mean, everyone else within the contract can withdraw the license, why not the end user? What about the option to give away a game you don't want to play anymore to a friend? So move your license to another account. With an all-digital ecosystem, game prices should go down again, shouldn't they? You know, like EA suggested a very long time ago, and never did anything about it. What about multiple different digital marketplaces in competition, so the end user can decide where to buy based on different value propositions? Like on PC. Yeah, I'm complaining a lot here about the move to an all-digital environment on console. How dystopic that would be. While on PC this has been a reality for over a decade now. And it's thriving. Try to get a recently released PC game physically. Actually physically. And while I do lament the loss of physical versions of games on PC, the situation is still so much better, actually good for the customer. On PC, you aren't stuck with one single storefront, and certainly not the one controlled by the manufacturer of your system. I don't really have to interact with the Microsoft Store at all. Game Pass was kinda neat for some time, but I have no desire of spending money in Microsoft's online store. Why would I pay for the inferior, more restrictive version? And there are some bad and broken and even predatory services on PC, quite a few. And it sucks that often developers default to Steam for their release, instead of DRM free. So even if you buy your game on an indie site or directly from the developer, quite often it's a Steam key. If you preferably play on PC, you most likely have a Steam account. And yeah, Steam is DRM. You have to regularly confirm that you still exist and own your games legally by connecting to the Steam server. So if that one goes down at some point in the future, or if you're stranded without internet for a longer period of time, you lose access to your games. And this is bad. That said, with Steam games, you download the complete data and could crack the game to play it without connecting to Steam. And there are still physical game versions that, while they do require Steam activation, they do have all the data on the disc. But this won't last forever. Steam also offers amazing deals, provides a good service with reviews, bulletin boards, in-game chat, generally a pretty good ecosystem that other services struggle to copy. And don't forget the refunds. And while Steam is the largest player for video games on PC, there are still a lot of alternatives. With one of them actually pretty damn good, aside from the developers that just let you download the data directly from their website. I'm speaking of course of GOG, good old games. Not safe from the odd controversy, when it comes to their online video game store, they might offer the most valuable service these days. DRM-free games, with one or two missteps where some content was tied to an online service, which got rightfully called out and harshly criticized. But yeah, with GOG, you buy the game, can download and launch it through their client, or just save the game data on any storage device you like and install it whenever, wherever you want, with or without internet. Press your own game disc with it, make your own special collector's editions. My main reason nowadays for why I buy games on console is to own them in physical form. If I can't buy physical games on console, then the last reason for owning one has finally disappeared. I won't get another new console on which I then can't get physical games that don't require an internet connection. So none of the major players. Xbox has abandoned true physical games a long time ago, Sony is about to abandon it, and Nintendo as well tries to sneak an all-digital environment in. And well, the Switch 2 requires a patch to play any game, so its days are also numbered. So if I don't get my physical versions anyways, then I can commit to PC gaming entirely. But maybe we should double down on supporting services like GOG and actively seek out and demand digital games being sold to us in a way where we control the data we bought. Where we are not reliant on another company's servers to play the games. I mean, if it were fully up to me, we would reintroduce physical copies to the PC platform. But yeah, that ship has sailed. Oh, and on the topic of GOG, when the European video game lobby contacted the EU Parliament and tried to sabotage the initiative to stop the destruction of video games, many studios and publishers spoke out against them, stating that the comments by Video Games Europe did not represent the opinions of said studios. They haven't even been consulted on that issue in some cases, and they fully support the efforts to preserve video games as pieces of art and artifacts of our culture, as well as the need for reasonable consumer rights. And now again they join gamers in calling out Sony on their anti-consumer practices. But where are all those studios when it comes to selling their games DRM free? I haven't seen Last of Us on GOG or Death Stranding. Baldur's Gate 3 is, so kudos to Larian. But you know what? This is our fault, at least in part. Sure, corruption in the industry and with lawmakers is something that shouldn't be ignored. We could have stronger laws when it comes to digital goods, something that has become common for the past 2 decades. Or, you know, the laws that already exist could just be enforced at all to protect consumers. And mega conglomerates owning the majority of corporations take away the only bit of power a customer has in deciding where to take their business. You can't vote with your wallet if, at the end of the day, regardless of where you buy your goods from, the money goes into the same pockets at the top. That's pretty grim, and I don't think it will get better. And once again, corruption plays a huge part in this. And yet, we enable them at every turn. We applaud and celebrate whenever an international multi-million-dollar company buys another international multi-million-dollar company to consolidate power in the market, holding exclusive rights to certain IPs and having total control over it. It's a good thing that Disney buys all the other studios, because then I can watch all their shows and movies on Disney+. It's good that Microsoft acquires the major developers, so their games can come exclusively to my favorite console. Or Game Pass, where they generate next to no revenue and the studio promptly gets killed. Even if the dystopia is inevitable, we shouldn't just welcome it with open arms. We can still resist, delay it, even if it is just for a bit longer, and maybe even demand terms of our own. And who knows, maybe enough scientific and economic change happens that the societal change might also be positive. There's always room for some hope. So yeah, don't give in to those companies. Don't hold petty squabbles with your fellow video game enthusiasts about whose soulless company is better. Instead, demand better. Don't buy their microtransaction-riddled slop games. And even if you do, at least stay away from the microtransactions themselves. Don't make excuses for them. Don't parrot their bullshit explanations as for why they should be allowed to take your games away from you. Don't give in to every carefully constructed hype and gleefully let yourself screwed by big publishers. No, you don't need to pay for their online services on console, and you certainly don't need to pay more in a few months. No, you don't need to pay 70 or 80 or 90 bucks for a video game just because the developers and publishers have forgotten how to reasonably budget. Don't pre-order to get the content they purposefully took out of the game, and especially don't pay 10 bucks more just to get even more of the content they withhold from you that should be in the game and in many cases is just locked away behind one line of code. And don't lose your shit over GTA 6. We're witnessing all of our rights being disregarded or taken away from us when it comes to digital goods. Laws are only ever applied to us, not to the companies who bend or break them. And then Rockstar comes around, announces with the most flimsiest and ludicrous explanations that GTA 6 will be digital only, console only, and also cost 80 bucks. With 100 bucks for the complete edition with all the cosmetics that were certainly part of the game at some point. We still know next to nothing about the game. Yeah, it will be a sandbox with nice environments, fancy cars, good licensed music. But come on, it's nothing special anymore. This isn't revolutionary like GTA 3 has been. I am sure the game will be fun. But why are people so obedient to Rockstar when it comes to the game? The last GTA was mostly an online shitfest with an extremely predatory business model, and the success of it affected how Rockstar treated expansions and other additional content going forward. If anything, we should be way more skeptical towards Rockstar. You really think GTA 6 won't play like any other open world action game? Why is this the game we can't wait for? No, instead we've been promising Rockstar for years that we would pay any price. You think the way customers and the gaming press have treated and praised a non-existent game isn't part of the problem? The established gaming press as well as independent critics and commentators said for years that the release of GTA 6 will have a huge impact on how the industry moves forward, on business models and asking prices. That this one single game will change the course of history, for gaming at least. But why? Why would we give a single game so much power? Wait, no. Why did we give a single game so much power? Those fucking retards who pre-ordered a digital-only game with limitless availability the moment pre-orders went live for 80 bucks. Yeah, I'm not gonna mince words here. I'm not gonna be nice to those people. Those idiots who go on eBay to buy a code in a box from a scalper who pre-ordered it on Amazon or something and pay even more than it would cost on the fucking PlayStation Store. This is your fault. I get it. Gaming is an awesome hobby. It offers so much fun. But do we have to act like drug addicts who cannot, under any circumstance, abstain from a game or just wait a bit? Wait to see if it's actually good. Wait for them to fix all the problems and maybe that way encourage publishers to release games in a working state again. No, instead we tell them years in advance that they can screw us over however they want and we just take it and are ready to accept any negative consequences for the rest of the medium. Also years in advance. The AAA industry isn't worth that. No console is worth it. And certainly not one single game is worth it. Your rights are important. You are important. Don't let these publishers treat you like a mindless drone, a zombie that can only consume and never think critically. You don't need those games. You don't need a PlayStation or an Xbox or a Switch. You don't need GTA 6. There are more games that you can play in an entire lifetime out there already. And there's a lot of developers that don't try to screw you over. That just want to give you an entertaining game. Or one that makes you think. Or just some weird shit that still sticks with you. Video games are great pieces of art. And are also filled with art. They are expressions of our culture. They are vehicles for stories, for self-expression, for teaching. They are too important to be handed over without a fight to greedy companies that don't even care about their actual value. Stop enabling these studios in their continuous efforts to wear down and destroy this art form. Demand better. Put your foot down. Stop letting these companies treat you like a sucker. Withhold your money until they offer you something of actual value. And don't pre-order GTA 6. Right now we have a chance to show them that actually we hold the power. We just need to come together and wield it responsibly.